I've smelled a lot of fragrances this year already. It's only February. A lot of new stuff, a lot of really exciting stuff, and it's been overflowing. I've wanted to share it with you guys. Now I'm doing that in this video. We're talking about some of my current fragrant obsessions so far in 2022. But I'm doing so with the caveat that I'm going to try to maintain for all of my top 10 videos moving forward. Please do not feel compelled to blind buy these fragrances. I'm not saying don't blind buy them, because I can't control what you do. It's your money, it's your life. But I do want to put it out there. I recommend you sample these fragrances first if you can. I'm really trying to avoid, even inadvertently, encouraging hoarding in this community, in this hobby. So be careful, be cautious, do your research. Again, I can't stop you from doing anything you want to do, but I want you to keep that in mind. So with that out the way, let's dive into it. No particular order here. This first one up, this is a very special fragrance. It's been growing on me. When I first smelled it, I liked it. I actually found it intoxicating, but the first thing I would ask is, man, can I pull this off? This is the newest from Argos. This is called Palace Athene. I did a whole interview with Christian Petrovich. He talks all about the fragrance and the history and the lore behind it. Really, really fascinating stuff. And the scent that goes with it all is incredible. This is bold. This is a bold personality. This is very, very floral. A little bit fruity. You do have some citruses mixing with some red berries. So it kind of has this bright, fruity vibe that's a little fresh. There's something almost green about it. I think one of the florals in here, there was like rose and hyacinth and things like that. No white florals though. So if you're not crazy about powdery white floral fragrances, this is not one of those. This is kind of a fruity floral, but more floral, has a freshness to it, kind of smells the way it looks, honestly. It is bold. It has a beautiful trail because it does use some more robust notes in the base like sandalwood and vetiver and patchouli and things like that. So it has a bit of a duality of what you would call masculine and feminine personalities, but this is more than anything, it's a very confident and distinctive personality. To many, it might lean a little feminine just to be upfront, but if you like florals, this is one to check out. Fantastic performance, fantastic presence. If you're not sure how to pull off a fragrance like this, that's maybe a little bit daring or challenging or outside of your comfort zone, check out this video if you missed it. 5 tips I give on how to pull off a more challenging fragrance. But check this one out. Use the code FRESH10. You can get a sample pack, sample all the fragrances, save a little bit of money with that code, and see how you feel about Argos. Next one up here. This is a clone technically, but the one thing I do appreciate about this brand is that they tend to put a little twist on their clones to improve an aspect about the original that they see fit. And as a result, it does make it a little bit different. This is coming from a Swedish brand called Niche for All, and it's called Vanilla Oud. They told me what it's supposed to be, but I forgot. And I was spending time with it for a night. I'm like, man, what does this remind me of? What does this remind me of? It was on the tip of my tongue until it finally hit me. It's basically Latent Exclusive, but they kind of made it more accessible in a way. Latent Exclusive has this sharp green quality with that dry oud, with that vanilla, with a little bit of coffee in there, maybe a touch of an animalic feel. It's nowhere near as animalic as this. If you weren't quite crazy about the edge that this has, this is Latent Exclusive with the edge taken off. It is sweet and creamy and rich and warm vanilla with a little bit of this dark woodiness, mostly smooth, very great quality, comes off the skin with a nice bubble. Just smells really, really inviting. So definitely something to check out if you like Latent Exclusive, but you're looking for something cheaper, or maybe you weren't crazy about this, you might like this one instead. I'll have links down below. All right, moving on. This is coming from a brand that I had never even heard of until, I don't know, maybe a month ago, Nuit Nomade. They just released their newest fragrance, which came out on Valentine's Day 2022, and they call it Click Song. I was really curious, what the heck is Click Song? And I regretfully had never heard of the Click Song, which is a famous song which was brought to the world by way of Miriam Makeba, who is a very, very well-known South African singer and star. And she was basically exiled from her home because she was very, very much against apartheid, which is a whole nother story you can read about online if you want. She was known as Mama Africa when she really started her career. And she brought this song, the Click song, which is not its original name. It has a name that I cannot pronounce, and I refuse to offend anyone who might actually know how to pronounce this word. But this is the name of this song, which is a song that was commonly performed at weddings as a means of good fortune. It's a very traditional song, and when European colonialists came in, they couldn't possibly say the name of it, so they called it based on what it sounded like to them. They called it the Click song. That's the world for you. But anyway, what does this smell like? This is an ode to Miriam, and wow, this is a relatively simple fragrance. Do not expect a lot of transformation on the skin. It is primarily an amber scent, ambery, sweet, and warm, with a little bit of freshness from some geranium. It has this very beautiful patchouli rose combo in the heart that brings kind of this medicinal earthy quality that's very much tucked inside of the sweet ambery warmth. Mostly amber, mostly warm, and sweet and rich with a little bit of that freshness and a little bit of nuance. Doesn't really change again that much, but will last on the skin a decent while. Not going to project like crazy, but it's going to be a beautiful, very inviting bubble for, I'd say, at least 6-7 hours on the skin. Perfectly unisex. Definitely check this one out. They do have samples on their website. So that is Click Song from Inuit Nomad. This is a house that I got to know very well. They sent me their discovery set. I discovered all their fragrances except for their newest one, which actually came out just a few weeks ago from the time I'm filming this. And I chose my favorite of that discovery set, and they sent me a bottle. This is from Atelier Materia, and this is called Narcisse Taiji. I've talked about this before. Again, currently my favorite from the house. It is incredible. It is incredible. This is beautiful, spicy ginger, very zingy with pear. So there's this juicy, zingy, spicy freshness when you first spray it on. Immediately there's something a little bit strange about it though. There's this green, earthy, kind of almost hay-like, almost tobacco-like floral, which is the Narcisse, which again brings this kind of green, earthy quality to this otherwise juicy, spicy, sweet, fresh fragrance. Beautiful scent, beautiful blend, very different, very unique. It dries to be like nothing I've ever smelled on my skin from things I've smelled. And I think it's definitely worth trying. If you're looking for something to wear in the springtime or even the fall, you could wear this pretty much all year round, but the profile itself, the personality does speak to more of a moderate temperatures, moderate weather kind of vibe. Not super hot, not super cold, beautiful stuff. Check out Narcisse Taiji. Check out their whole discovery set. I'm gonna link them down below. From the house of Nishane. I'm really, really grateful for my friend Chris, who is the reason why I'm discovering this fragrance. Really appreciate you, Chris. And this is called Nefs, and they have another fragrance in this line. I think it's called Shem. Haven't tried that one. This is beautiful stuff though. This is juicy, fruity, lots of osmanthus, which is a floral, and it comes off a bit like apricot. So there is this sweet fruitiness, but there's also some spicy saffron in there, almost a little bit leathery. And you have a beautiful base of like vanilla and whiskey and oud and others. Really opulent fragrance. I actually wore this yesterday for Valentine's Day. Me and Grace went out to dinner and she absolutely loved it. Very, very luxurious and elegant smelling. It is not cheap. I'm telling you, do not blind buy this. I think it retails over 500 bucks. So sample it first, see how you like it. Some people might find it a little feminine because it is quite almost fruity floral in a way, but there's so many more nuances going on. Such a warmth to it. Very, very opulent stuff, and you would expect nothing else from Nishane. So check out Nefs if you haven't already. I was really excited to be introduced to this brand new, well, relatively brand new indie brand based up in Canada by way of my friend Matthew at Melic Perfumes. I got to know another brand owner that he's friends with. Her name is Sunyata. And this brand is called Untamed Fragrances. She currently has 4 fragrances. I think she has a background in aromatherapy and took a really interesting approach to creating these fragrances. Very holistic, very thoughtful, very clear themes and ideas that are being represented here. And it all has to do with nature. This is called Running with Wolves from Untamed Fragrances. Man, I could look at the notes. I'm not going to right now. I don't have them memorized or anything, but this is kind of like almost this cherry sweetness inside of this dry, kind of woody, leathery quality. There's something earthy and grounding about the scent, but there is this nice, pretty prominent sweetness tucked away in there. It's an extrait de parfum, as they all are, so it's gonna have a lot of beautiful presence, not crazy projection monster, but will leave that trail that you're looking for. This is kind of an elegant fragrance. I would mainly dress this up because of the scent profile being so different and unique, and because of it being quite powerful. I'd mainly wear this in the cooler weather. It doesn't have to be winter. Fall would be just fine as well, but highly recommend checking out all their fragrances. I have all four. One of them I'm still kind of getting to know. It's not my favorite, but the other three I'm really enjoying so far, and this is one of them, Running with Wolves. Up next, this was a highly anticipated release when it was announced. I think it was just kind of dropped very surprisingly, and I was really surprised to hear about this when I heard about it, because this is a parfum flanker of the original EDP. The original EDP is one of my favorite fragrances, period. Top 10 in my collection, top 10 I've ever smelled thus far. And it's quite powerful. And so when they announced, oh, we're doing a parfum, I was like,
really?
I don't know if we need a parfum. The EDP is strong, but we're here with the parfum. And they've made it even more refined. Somehow they improved upon it. This is from Roger Parfums. This is called Oligarch Parfum. So, if you didn't already know, Oligarch EDP, which I've raved about in countless videos, is now discontinued. It's been replaced by the Parfum Flanker. How does this differ from the EDP? It really doesn't differ by that much. They kind of like cleaned up the edges, they polished it, they deepened it a bit. It just has kind of a richer feel to it. It's not as bright and citrusy as the original. It doesn't have quite as much pop and lift as the original. So it comes off a little bit less fresh. Even though the citrus is there and it's quite prominent and it's still juicy, it's not quite as bright and fresh. The warmth and the woods and the amber and all these things in the base of this are what are accentuated. So they kind of shrunk the head but lengthened the tail, so to speak. Beyond that, it's really not very different from the original. So if you already have the original, I don't think you need this. But if you have not smelled the original, you can't really get it anymore. Some websites might be selling decants of it, but officially you cannot buy it anymore. This is still a great one to check out. This is still going to introduce you to the beautiful DNA that is Oligarch, that a lot of people seem to say smells like Terre d'Hermès. It does to me as well, only on paper. On my skin, this is sweeter and fruitier than Terre d'Hermès, which I love. But check out Oligarch if you haven't. Again, the parfum is going to be your entryway if you haven't checked out the DNA yet. So I'm going to have links down below where you can hopefully sample it. Here up next, this is a brand that I missed out on. This was a small indie brand. They were around a few years ago. They built up quite a following and then they closed their doors. I want to say it was in 2020 perhaps. And I was bummed because I didn't get to try them. Not long after that, one of my friends who actually worked for a perfumery sent me a bunch of samples of the brand, just kind of out of the blue. She's like, hey, this brand is going out of business. Did you try them? I'm like, no, I would love to try them. She sent me like some of the last remaining samples that were out there. I fell in love with these fragrances. Fast forward to a few months ago, I get an email from the brand saying, hey, we're coming back under new ownership. Would love to send you our fragrances. And I was really hoping, okay, I'd love to do that. I'm hoping that they're the same as they were in those samples that I checked out. And they are. The magic is still here. From Dasein, we have Winter Nights. I also have Winter, which is beautiful, which was created by the creator of the brand. Winter Nights was actually created by Josh Meyer, who is the perfumer and owner of Imaginary Authors. This is an incredible fragrance. So transported. If you love winter, if you smelled that one, it's darkened, it's richened. You still have this kind of green coniferous feel as if you're out in the forest. There's this cool air quality to it, but there's this nice, beautiful smokiness, like you're near a campfire. It's just a very calming and again, transportive scent, very grounding. Smells like nothing else out there. Winter Nights is so beautiful. Something to wear on a cozy night in. You could wear it in the cool weather because it says winter, but you could also wear this in the heat, I would say. Not in the dead of heat. The profile being quite smoky is not the first thing I would choose for a hot day, but it works at night just fine because it has a little bit of a freshness to it. But mostly I'd wear this when it's a little chilly. Beautiful stuff. Winter Nights from Dasein. Up next is a fragrance I've talked about, I think in a pretty recent video, And this is a scent that I have loved ever since I first smelled it. This is coming from Milano. I did a whole video on all the fragrances that they had released at the time, a couple years ago, not long after I returned to making videos on YouTube. And this was my favorite one. I never got a bottle of it because the deals weren't quite right enough. And then MaxAroma reached out and they said, hey, I want to send this to you. So I've loved this fragrance and I love it even more now. This is Russian Tea from Milano. Another very transportive and very specific scent. This is very peculiar. So if you're looking for something that's just going to smell pleasing to everyone, this is not it. This is smoked black tea with a little bit of spice, with a little bit of sweet tart raspberry that's very realistic. Absolutely beautiful. I think perfumed by Julian Rasquinet. Very talented perfumer. Very captivating fragrance here. If you like tea, but with strength, with a smoky kind of incense quality, with a fruitiness in there, check out Russian Tea. Beautiful stuff. And finally, from a brand that I had put off trying for years. I was always interested though, because their fragrances look like they don't really care what anybody says. They want to convey a feeling, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you can keep it moving. This is coming from Francesca Bianchi. The brand reached out to me over a month ago, and they sent me their discovery set of like 12 fragrances or something like that. It was a lot of fragrances. I like to take my time with discovery sets, so they wanted me to go through all of them and choose my favorite. They would send me a bottle, which is very generous. So I went through all of them. It took me like a month and a half to smell all the fragrances. I took notes on all of my experiences with each one, and it wasn't until the very end of all 12 where I decided this is the one I want. I had chosen maybe 3 along the way that I loved, but once I smelled this one, I'm like, this is it. This is called Etruscan Water. I want to share with you this little image that I created for Instagram when I did a little write-up on Etruscan Water. If you're not following me on Instagram, there's a link down below, but this is my handle here. Etruscan Water is supposed to represent being near the Mediterranean. So maybe you're near a forest, you can smell this kind of green, mossy, piney woodiness. Lots of oak moss in here. Definitely has a sheep vibe to it, so it is in that genre, but lots of juicy, bright citruses. Probably the only fragrance in her collection that has like bright freshness to it. There's one other that has some lavender, but the rest of them are very, very dark and animalic. This is something I knew I'd get a lot of wear out of, so I chose this one. Yeah, fresh citrus, but has a brash, dark woodiness, almost leaning animalic. There's a darkness to it. So it's not for everyone. It's a very distinctive profile, very powerful stuff. I think they're all 25% concentrated, so they are quite strong. You don't need much. Something to wear when you want to stand out. Incredible fragrance, very edgy, but still wearable. That is Etruscan Water from Francesca Bianchi. That is going to do it for me. I would love to know what is one fragrance you've discovered this year so far, just a couple months into the year, that is blowing you away, that is captivating you, that you're obsessed with. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. I know we were talking about all niche fragrances, and that's what's captivating me right now. I am not really caring for the current designer releases because they're not pushing any bounds. Video for another day. But let me know down in the comments what you're loving. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Join the Fresh Squad to elevate your freshness, which is elevating your presence in every room and how you treat people and how you carry yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.